Kill her! Let them kill her! The screams echoed through the square. They sounded just like the growls of a pack of starving wolves. Dust Creek. That forgotten corner, abandoned by God in the middle of the desert. It had transformed, under the unforgiving midday sun, into a spectacle of rage and cruelty. I was there. I saw with my own eyes everything that happened that day. And I swear to you, I had never seen so much evil gathered in one single place. But I also witnessed something else. Something that would end up changing the destiny of that town forever. Let me tell you how it began. It was Tuesday, one of those cursed Tuesdays in July, when the heat seemed capable of melting even the stones. The dust-covered streets of Dust Creek burned like glowing coals, and the air trembled under a heavy calm, the kind of calm that announces that something bad is about to happen. Then we heard the thunder of hooves. 3 horses were entering the town at full speed. The Vale deputies brought something with them, or, rather, they brought someone. It was a prisoner. She was being dragged as if she were a captured beast. She had her hands tied with ropes. They were so tight that they dug into her dark skin. Over her head, she wore a dirty burlap sack. It was stained and rough. It took away her air, the light, and even her last shred of dignity. Her clothes were torn into rags. Fresh bruises could be seen on her arms, and on her knees there were scabs of dried blood. She had fought, she had defended herself, and they had beaten her for daring to resist. "Everyone to the square!" roared Bert Slade. He was the most heavily built of the deputies. His voice echoed among the houses like a clap of thunder. "Sheriff Orson Vale has an important announcement." In less than 10 minutes, half of the population had gathered there. In Dust Creek, almost nothing worth telling ever happened. So when something out of the ordinary occurred, everyone wanted to see it, especially if it smelled of violence and promised blood. The Dust Creek merchants abandoned their counters. The Dust Creek women left their chores half done. Even the Dust Creek children ran from every corner. They came with that ruthless curiosity that children sometimes show, when they do not yet understand the weight of another person's suffering. Everyone formed a circle around the woman. She was kneeling in the middle of the square. One of the Vale deputies pushed her with brutality. Yara fell onto the burning dirt with a dull thud. A muffled groan escaped from beneath the sack. Then he appeared. Sheriff Orson Vale stepped out of his office. He walked with the air of a man convinced that he was the owner of the world. He walked with that arrogance that he had perfected. Over his 10 years of wearing the star on his chest, he stepped up to the highest step of the porch. From there he could observe everyone as if he were above the rest. He loved feeling powerful. "People of Dust Creek," he began, raising both hands like a preacher facing his faithful followers. "Today is an important day for our community. We have finally caught the person responsible for all of our misfortunes." The crowd leaned forward. They were anxious to hear more. "This woman," he continued, pointing at the prisoner with contempt, "is Yara, an Apache thief who has been stealing our cattle for months. 3 of the Dust Creek ranchers have lost animals because of her and her people." A furious roar erupted among the people. "I knew it was them. The Apache are all thieves. My brother lost 5 cows last month. They should lock up all of those savages." Yara remained motionless under that suffocating sack. However, I could see her tied hands. They were trembling. Yes, but not from fear. It was rage. It was a contained fury that ran through her body without managing to break her. "Do you have proof, Sheriff?" someone shouted from the crowd. "Of course I have proof," responded Sheriff Orson Vale. He was showing a satisfied smile. "We found marks of her people next to every attacked ranch. We found remains of Apache campfires. tracks of horses without horseshoes, and signs of their camp. Furthermore, we captured her near the ranch of Amos Creed, right after the last theft. That was more than enough for the crowd. The first stone came from somewhere among the people. No one saw who threw it. It hit her shoulder with a dull sound. She shuddered, but she did not scream. Then came another stone, then another, and one more. It was as if that first blow had broken a dam, and the hatred began to spill out without restraint. Small stones, large rocks, and handfuls of dried dirt. They flew against that defenseless woman, who could not even see where the attacks were coming from. Apache thief. Let her pay for what she did. Let her people learn. The insults mixed with the whistling of the stones cutting through the air. The dust rose around Yara until it wrapped her in a yellowish cloud. Sheriff Orson Vale watched with his arms crossed and a satisfied smile. The Vale deputies laughed among themselves, enjoying the spectacle as if it were a carnival show. Yara curled her body, trying to protect herself, but with her hands tied and the sack covering her head, she could do nothing. She could only receive the blows. She could only endure. Blood began to spread across her torn clothes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump into the center of the square and force them to stop. But I was barely a 14-year-old boy. What could Toby Quinn do against a crowd that had lost its reason? The violence grew like a desert storm. More stones, more screams, more hatred. We should mark her with a red-hot iron. Let her be dragged through the desert. The Apache need to learn their place. And then, in the middle of that chaos, inside that hell of dust, blood, and rage, something changed. A different sound cut through the air. It was the slow, serene, almost careless trot of a horse. The crowd began to turn around, confused, and the screams faded away, little by little, like candles consumed by the wind. A rider had just stopped at the edge of the square. We all turned our gaze toward him. He was tall, much taller than most of the men I had seen in Dust Creek. He rode on Nightfall, a horse as black as a moonless sky, covered with an old saddle marked by years of roads, dust, and storms. On his head, he wore a wide-brimmed black hat that buried his face in a thick shadow. His long coat, the color of parched earth, barely moved under the hot breeze. A pistol rested on his right hip. Although his hands remained calm on the horn of the saddle, he did not seem to be in a hurry, nor was he impressed by the crowd. And, certainly, he did not give the impression of fearing anything or anyone in this world. He stepped down from Nightfall with an agile and natural movement. He tied the reins to a nearby post, and he began to walk toward us. His boots sank into the dust with a firm crunch, always keeping the same rhythm, almost like the slow beat of a drum. Every step was calculated. He did not run, nor did he hesitate, acting as if he had all the time that existed. The people stepped aside without anyone asking them to, opening a path for him, like waters divided by an invisible force. His gray eyes, cold as steel under a stormy sky, swept across the entire square. Yara bleeding on the ground, the stones scattered around, and those faces hardened by hatred. Flint Rourke walked directly toward the center of the square, where Yara remained curled up on herself. Sheriff Orson Vale quickly walked down the steps of his office. He was clearly irritated by that interruption. He could not stand anyone taking the attention away from him, much less during the moment that he considered his great triumph. "Listen, stranger," he barked with an authoritative tone. "This does not concern you. I advise you to mount your horse again and continue on your way before you get into trouble." Flint Rourke did not answer immediately. He continued walking until he was 1 meter away from Yara. By then, The entire square had fallen silent. No one dared to even cough. We could all feel it, that strange pressure in the air, the tension that builds up just before a storm unleashes all of its fury. Finally, Flint spoke. His voice was deep and calm, but every word carried the hardness of steel inside. It was one of those voices that do not need to be raised to make everyone listen. "She is coming with me." 5 words. Nothing more than 5 words. But they fell upon the square like stones thrown into a still pond, and the shock spread from face to face until it reached everyone present. Sheriff Orson Vale blinked, convinced that he had misheard. "What? What did you just say?" Flint Rourke turned his face and looked him directly in the eyes. And then I saw something that I would never forget. I saw Sheriff Orson Vale, that man who considered himself so powerful and so important, take a step backward without realizing it. "I said," repeated Flint, pronouncing every word even more slowly, "that Yara is coming with me." He let an instant pass, allowing the silence to give weight to what he was about to add. "Because she is innocent, and I intend to prove it." A murmur ran through the square like an underground current. People looked at each other, searching for an explanation that no one could offer. Who was that man? Where had he come from? And why on earth was he risking himself to protect an Apache accused of stealing cattle? Sheriff Orson Vale quickly regained his composure. He could not allow a stranger to make him look like a coward in front of the Dust Creek folks, as his authority and his reputation were at stake. "Listen, friend," he said, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. "I do not know where you come from, or what you think you know, but here we do things differently. This woman was captured with clear proof. She stole cattle belonging to 3 ranches." "Proof?" asked Flint, and the word came out of his mouth with such a careless calm that it sounded more dangerous than any threat. "What kind of proof exactly?" Sheriff Orson Vale straightened his back, trying to look taller and firmer. "We found tracks of her people next to every raided ranch, remains of Apache campfires, tracks of horses without horseshoes, and other signs of her people. Furthermore, we caught her near the ranch of Amos Creed immediately after the last theft. Does that seem like not enough evidence to you?" Flint Rourke nodded slowly, as if he were meditating on the words, but his eyes told a different story. "Interesting," he whispered. "So you assure me that this woman, completely alone, stole dozens of cattle from 3 different ranches, then led them across the desert without leaving a real trail, except for a few campfires placed in a very convenient manner. And, to finish, she decided to stay near the last place she had looted, waiting quietly for you to come and arrest her." He made an intentional pause. "Do you really expect anyone with half a brain to believe such a story?" The murmurs grew louder. Some Dust Creek folks reacted with anger, but others began to frown and look at the sheriff with new doubts. Orson Vale's face turned red, like freshly cut meat. "Are you calling me a liar, stranger?" "No," replied Flint with that unsettling serenity. "I am telling you that someone is using you." The square fell silent again. "There are men stealing cattle in this region. That is true, but they are not Apache." Flint Rourke knelt next to Yara and, with careful, almost tender movements, began to untie the ropes that were digging into her wrists. "They are white men," he continued while he loosened the knots. "They are cunning men who know exactly what tracks to leave so that others take the blame." Fake campfires, horses without horseshoes, and signs placed on purpose. Everything designed so that you look toward the Apache camp, while the real thieves walk away with the cattle. And you, Sheriff, are doing exactly what they need you to do. "That is stupidity," erupted Sheriff Orson Vale, reaching for his pistol out of pure reflex. "You cannot just appear here and—" "And what?" interrupted Flint Rourke. without even bothering to look at him, his fingers continuing to work patiently on the knots. And tell the truth? Point out that you are about to punish an innocent woman, while the real thieves are still free, mocking you behind your back? The ropes finally came loose and fell onto the dust. Yara opened and closed her hands very slowly, feeling the blood returning to her numb fingers. Flint finally stood up and fixed his eyes on Sheriff Orson Vale. I am going to ask you a question, Vale, and you had better think carefully before you answer. Have any cattle disappeared since you locked up this woman? The sheriff opened his mouth, but no word came out. He closed it again. His face, which was already red from rage, took on a dark, almost purple tone. That has nothing to do with this matter. Answer. There was something in Flint's gray eyes that allowed no excuses or evasions. Sheriff Orson Vale swallowed hard, fully aware that the entire square was waiting for his answer. Judd Carver reported the disappearance of 5 cows the day before yesterday. He admitted at last, his voice sounding like a growl. The day before yesterday? Repeated Flint. That was 2 days after you captured Yara, when she was already locked up in your cell. The silence that fell over Dust Creek was so heavy that it seemed capable of crushing a man. The expressions of the Dust Creek folks began to change. Some frowned, others lowered their gaze, and doubt began to make its way among them like water seeping through the cracks of a dam. That proves nothing, stammered Orson Vale. She could have an accomplice. An accomplice? Flint raised an eyebrow. Then you admit that there is more than one thief? The sheriff did not answer. And if there are multiple people responsible, continued Flint, why are you so sure that she is one of them? He leaned down again and carefully took the burlap sack that covered Yara's head, lifting it slowly until he removed it completely. When the fabric fell to the ground, we could all see her face. She was young, perhaps about 25 years old, with a patch of dried blood spread over her left cheek, a swollen eye that was beginning to turn dark, and a split lip from one of the blows. However, none of that had managed to break her. Her black eyes continued to shine with a fierce, almost wild pride, and she looked at Flint Rourke with deep distrust, like a wounded animal trying to decide if the approaching hand brings help or a new trap. Flint spoke to her in a low voice, reserving those words only for her. I was close enough to hear him, although I did not understand everything, as he spoke fluently in the Apache language. Yara blinked, surprised, and answered him in the same language. Flint nodded and reached his hand out toward her. "Do you trust me?" he asked, this time in Spanish, so that everyone present could understand him. Yara studied his face for a long time. She had lived long enough to know that many white men lied, with the same ease with which they breathed. But there was something different about Flint. His eyes did not show that usual contempt that she had seen so many times, nor was there superiority, mockery, or that poorly hidden disgust with which others observed her. Slowly, she accepted his hand. Flint helped her stand up with extreme care, treating her as if her bones could break at the slightest movement. And when Yara lost her balance from the pain of her wounds, he held her by the arms until she could stand on her own. Then he turned his gaze back to Sheriff Orson Vale. "I am going to offer you a deal, Vale, one that might suit us all. I do not want to hear any proposal." 3 days, interrupted Flint, not raising his voice, because he did not need to, as those 2 words had enough weight to make everyone keep quiet. "Give us 3 days. Yara and I will find the real thieves, and we will return with real proof, not with campfires placed on purpose, nor with tracks prepared to deceive an entire town." He let a few seconds pass, allowing each sentence to settle in the minds of those present. "If after 3 days we have not proven her innocence, you will be able to do with her whatever you want. You have my word." "And who on earth are you to offer your word?" growled the sheriff, although he no longer spoke with the same confidence as before. For the first time, Flint Rourke smiled. It was not a warm or friendly smile. It was a brief and cold curve that made more than one man look away. "They call me Flint Rourke," he said simply, pronouncing the name as if it needed no explanation. And, judging by the reaction of some of the old rangemen, it was clear that it did mean something. I saw two older ranchers exchange uneasy glances, and one of them took a step backward without intending to. "Flint Rourke?" whispered Ezra Pike from somewhere in the crowd. "I have heard stories about him in Texas. They say he followed the Brack brothers all the way to Mexico, and he never loses a trail." Sheriff Orson Vale also heard those murmurs, and in a matter of seconds, his expression changed from arrogance to an uncertainty that was difficult to hide. "Look, Rourke, if you really are who you claim to be, I am, then you will understand that I have a responsibility to this town. And I cannot just release a prisoner accused of—" "3 days, Vale," repeated Flint, this time his voice coming out colder and harder. "If you do not trust me to discover the truth, then tell me something. Why on earth do you wear that star pinned to your chest?" It was a direct challenge, and everyone in that square knew it. Sheriff Orson Vale had two paths: accept the challenge or draw his weapon. And something inside me said that he did not want to test himself against that man. He looked first at Yara, then at Flint Rourke, and, finally, at the crowd that awaited his decision with bated breath. "All right," he finally yielded, as if every word scratched his throat. 3 days, but she remains under your responsibility. If she causes trouble, if she tries to escape, if—" "There will not be any problem," interrupted Flint, resting a hand gently on Yara's shoulder and guiding her toward nightfall. The Dust Creek folks stepped aside in front of them like waters opening in their path, as no one wanted to get too close. I watched them leave together, the tall and calm stranger, and the beaten Apache woman who could barely stand. They left behind a town full of questions and no answers, and I knew it with that strange certainty that sometimes enters the hearts of young people. Something grand was about to happen, something that would change Dust Creek forever.